Welcome to our very first podcast of Dialed In Angling. I am your host, Tony Roach. I am joined by the one and only Bill Shirk. You know, this is our first podcast. This is our second season of filming. We're fresh off a shoot out in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Ice is here, man. We went from fall, 50 degrees, walleye fishing, grouse hunting, shooting pheasants, killing deer, to instantly ice fishing. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, Bill.
You are in such a great mood this year. If we go back 364 days, we were foul right now.
You know, up until 3 weeks ago, I think I was calling or texting Aaron, the producer, like every single day because I was so nervous based on last year. You know, not having an ice season really last year and shooting an entire episode or entire season of episode of ice shows, and you getting ice reports from people that don't have any ice reports. I was very gun shy going into this season, but now coming back from North Dakota, I'm on cloud nine. I drove literally for 11 hours yesterday. I drove from Devil's Lake to home, from home to the Twin Cities and back, carting ice gear. I was picking up otters. I was doing all sorts of stuff on our way back. I was on cloud nine. I sat on the phone the entire time talking about ice fishing with everybody that I possibly could.
You're in the office and you're like, there are cars that have spun out into the guardrails. They're off in the ditch. It's amazing.
It's like Christmas, right? I mean, not to like pick on these people for not being experienced drivers in the winter, but I'm like really reveling in this winter madness that we're having right now. I mean, think about it. What was it, just before Thanksgiving? I know we hit 50 degrees. I was in a deer stand just freaking out that we weren't going to have an ice season. And then here I am, you fast forward to our shoot at Devil's Lake, and we're standing on 8-9 inches of ice. Now, I want to caution ice anglers out there. There was definitely parts of Devil's Lake that were wide open. Birds have been keeping it open. I know on the drive down to the Twin Cities, there's unsafe ice. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But just to be standing on ice, catching walleyes in the manner that we were, dude, it doesn't get any better. And we are fully on our way to a fantastic season of Dialed In Angling. We've got a great lineup this year. We truly do. I couldn't be more excited about the ice destinations that we're going to, the fishing reports and the pros that we're getting input from. I think you're going to tune in. If you're an ice fishing enthusiast, even just a casual ice angler, we have so much information that we pack into our show that we're going to pack into this podcast. I couldn't be more excited. Hey, I'm going to take a second and just thank a few of our sponsors. First and foremost, Strike Master. They've been on board since the beginning. Onyx Fish is on board this year. Couldn't be more excited about that.
We've told you about Onyx Hunt. Now let me tell you about Onyx Fish. Ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with Onyx Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use Onyx Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download Onyx Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice.
Heat Hog, and then, of course, Markham. I'm going to get back into kind of peeling the curtains back, if you will. We're going to tease out a lot of episodes this year. So as we get back from our locations, or maybe even when we're still on the locations, we're going to talk a lot about what's taking place during that particular episode, right? But also, we're going to kind of show maybe some insight into specific locations, what you need to pick up or what you need to bring or what you need to buy for those locations. So if you're going to those ice fishing destinations, you're fully prepared. I don't know, Bill, you are coming off the ice reports. I didn't get to hear the ice reports from the other guys, but what are you sensing from them? Do they have the excitement like I do when it comes to the ice fishing bug right now?
The entire team, we're like a bunch of kids sitting around the Christmas tree, right? Marcus Quam, who's such a great character, you know, the long beard, the deep rolling voice. He was just like, I don't remember ice this good this early. This is amazing. There's so much going on. It's freezing. Everything's going to be safe. I might be in the snow bear in 2 weeks. I can't believe it. Super excited. Jamie Dittman up in the central part of Minnesota, Josh Bull event. Same deal. They're just like, I can't believe it. People are out pan fishing today. Some of the big lakes are starting to cap over, and we've got cold weather coming. So there is a ton of excitement. And speaking of Strike Master, Randy Havel, one of my old mentors, I know how dear he is to your heart as well. He used to own Strike Master, and he would always say that back in the day, if there was fishable ice somewhere in the state of Minnesota, by the time we got to the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show, the averages, that was our marker that it was going to be a very good ice fishing year. And I would say it sounds like we're going to have that this year.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's here. I watched, my Facebook feed, Instagram go from dead deer, pheasants, grouse to instantly ice fishing, where people are putting up posts and they're fishing all over the ice belt. I saw, 150 different portables out on Menominee Lake or wherever it was in Wisconsin. You're seeing posts from northern Minnesota, the Dakotas. I couldn't believe when I drove across North Dakota. I went out there right after Thanksgiving, brought my son. We did a little pheasant shoot out there. God bless North Dakota. It is legendary because you can go out there and kill a bunch of birds and then go catch a bunch of fish. But on the drive out there, every single pothole is locked up, and I was almost veering off the road, like staring to see if people were out ice fishing on those bodies of water. Now, having said that, I'm always an early ice guy. I love getting out there. I'm as excited as anybody, you can tell with just the tone of my voice. But I'm also one who has made a living on the ice and fishing 20 years full-time of ice guiding and open water guiding. I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of close calls over that 20 years. I've never personally gone through the ice where it was like, I broke through the shoreline in the spring or something like that, but I've never had any real super close calls, but yet it's always in the back of my mind.
So I was going to ask you if you've ever gone through.
I have not. I have gone through in the shoreline. Like I said, I actually, a couple times put like wheelers in right at the access, and had to like drag them out. But no, knock on wood, have never gone through where it was, serious. But I've had situations where I'm standing on good ice, and if I had not had a spud bar with me, I would have went through.
So what that tells me is you've always been well equipped, properly prepped to deal with ice conditions, right? People get so excited this time of year. They take chances where if we just breathe and wait a couple of days, have the sped bar, just take our time, things can be pretty safe.
100% safe, but you're right. You have to slow down. You're excited to get out there. You see other people out there, right? And then next thing you know, you're just racing out there. I always take the time. I have a float suit on. I've got the picks over my neck, and I have a spud bar, okay? And even when we got out to Devil's Lake, that's the first thing I did was grab my picks, grab my spud bar. We spudded our way out to our spots. It took about 1.5 miles, so I was eager to get out ice fishing. But we took the time to check every inch of ice. Even if that ice sounded a little different, we were drilling holes to check the thickness. And I think that's 100% of the reason people get in trouble is they just assume, hey, it's good. I see all these Facebook posts. I see people out on the body of water that I want to fish. And it's amazing how many, waterfowl can keep a lake open, or an otter or muskrats or whatever the scenario. It could be gas bubbles, methane. I've just learned so much over the 20 years of getting out onto early ice, and each ice sheet is different. It truly is. I can think of scenarios where, like I said, if I didn't have a spud bar, I would have went through. I was standing on 9 to 10 inches good ice. There was a light layer of snow, and I literally stuck the spud bar out in front of me. It went right through. I almost lost the spud bar. Had I not had it, around my wrist, I would have lost that piece of metal. And that is a wake-up call. And that is the sort of thing that keep me up at night. As a fishing guide, I want to make sure my customers are going to catch fish. But first and foremost, we make sure that they're safe. And so I approach every ice fishing scenario the same. And, that can be said as you get into winter, going off a last winter of filming dialed in angling, going to all those different locations. We met so many weird, strange ice conditions, and we had all that rain last year. I didn't get a lot of sleep last year, I can tell you that. But, having said that, we did it safely, and I told every camera person that came out with us, and Aaron, the producer, and I think Bill and I, you and I had several talks, and Travis, where, hey, I'm going to keep everybody safe.
Of course.
That was my goal. I mean, we needed to get on fish to film a TV show, but first and foremost was safety.
Yeah, we do, in theory, need to be on fish to film a television show, but that's not why we produce this program, right? We use common sense and we go out, and when conditions make sense and things are right, we go and good things happen.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, 100%. And I'm all about the experience portion of it and showing the fact that if you look back into season 1 episodes, we spud buttered our way out and we walked. I was just having a conversation in the hallway with Ben, one of the camera people, and told Ben, well, this year we might actually be able to take a machine. Because last year, I think the first 4 or 5 episodes, we walked. And we walked a long ways. That episode on Red Lake that Travis and I did, I know that just to get to our first spot, we walked almost 2 miles. And then we bounced around because we weren't really finding fish right away. And so we spud barred and we did it right. And it was walking, and thank the good Lord we didn't have 2 feet of snow because that would have been difficult. But even Wekusko, that first episode we shot at Wekusko, Brian Bogdan up there, who is just a fantastic human being. But Brian's like, hey, we've got just a short little walk out to where we're going to fish. I said, okay. And I said, we're, kind of over by that island. And he's like, yeah, somewhat. I think it's maybe 300-400 yards. Well, he's Canadian, right? They're on the metric system. 300-400 yards was an absolute flat out lie. We were pulling through 9 inches of snow, the biggest otter sleds that you could possibly think of, strapped on our back. And, I have to say, I'm not in the greatest shape like I was maybe in college, but hiking out there, I mean, I was dying. We were just pulling, and that was only a few inches of snow. So I can't imagine shooting last year if we had to deal with that every episode. I would have been so lean and mean, Bill. They could have put me on,
You would have looked like podcast engineer Alex.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they could have put me on the Minnesota Vikings. I could have been on the, special teams or something after one season of dialed in angling last year. But thankfully, we didn't have snow, so we were able to get out and we walked. I think the episode 2 or 3 maybe where Travis, Pat McSherry, we kind of hiked through the woods to get to a specific location. I kind of dumbed it down for those guys because I knew it was sort of a hike through the woods, but I've always taken it on a 4-wheeler. So these guys are like, well, how far is it down to the lake? I was like, I think it's only like 100 yards. No, it had to be half a mile through the woods to get there, dragging an otter sled through dirt because there isn't any snow. So we definitely got to work out this year. I think this year it's already started out better. Our first episode that we filmed out in Devil's Lake, we had 8 to 9 inches of ice. We were driving 4-wheelers. They actually took a Ranger out there. Good, safe ice conditions, but they checked every inch before we went out there, and we were able to use machines. Life is better with machines, let me tell you.
But everyone is gripping the steering wheel listening to this right now saying, yeah, but did you catch any fish?
We did, and I will get into that. Not only did we catch fish, we pounded on fish, and Devil's Lake to me is a special location. If you've never been to Devil's Lake, you've heard about the perch, right? The Perch Patrol, the legendary Devil's Lake Gold of perch. But really, you need to get out there and do a little walleye fishing as well. If you're going out there specifically for perch, that's great, but plan on catching a few walleyes. Full disclosure, I have never fished Devil's Lake early ice. I've fished it late ice. I fished it mid-season. I fished it open water. I've shot ducks out there. I've spent well over 20 years visiting Devil's Lake. My college roommate was from Devil's Lake. So I've spent ample amount of time out there. I've never gone early ice to Devil's Lake, and that will never happen again.
Have you ever pike fished?
No, I've caught them. I mean, you can't not catch pike on Devil's Lake.
No, but have you ever gone to target them?
I have not.
It
no.
is one of the most amazing experiences on ice.
I can only imagine. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the Dakotas, pothole lakes, whether it's in South Dakota, North Dakota, and I've caught a pile of pike out there on tip-ups. But I take that back, Bill. I've never specifically targeted them, but we certainly had pike tip-ups set up out there. I remember putting hot dogs out. We had the hot dog conversation when we were in Devil's Lake.
Leftovers after lunch. Let's try it.
Now, hot dogs on tip-ups, that will also be a conversation that we're going to shelf for a minute. But let me get back into the perch. The whole history of perch fishing in Devil's Lake, right? I mean, the perch trains. They used to have trains that would go from Minneapolis to Devil's Lake.
I used to ride it.
Bringing people out there perch fishing. And the Perch Patrol, Jason Mitchell. I mean, we ended up staying at Woodland Resort, which I've known Kyle Blanchfield for 25 years. When we used to go out there in college, we'd stay at my buddy's parents' farm. Well, then I started hunting and fishing with a different group of guys. So we would go out and visit my buddy's parents and say hi to them. But we started staying at Woodland. And even when we were, 21, 22-year-old kids, Kyle was always the coolest dude to us. He was always super nice.
Always has been.
Yeah, he would tell us where the birds are, how the things are looking. He was always excited about people being at his resort. The first thing he said to me when I walked in that resort, "Welcome back." That was so cool. I was like, I just felt at home. And I was so excited to be there anyway. And then to get out there and then get on the ice, we ended up fishing with Alex Reslock. He's one of the Perch Patrol guys. Couldn't be a nicer human being as well. He just opened us. I called him out of the blue and I said, "Hey, how's the ice? How's the bite?" And we just got to talking. He's like, "Hey, why don't you just jump in with me? I'll take you fishing." And that, to me was unbelievable gesture on his part. He's got a million things going on. He's still hunting. He was killing birds. And for him to just welcome us with open arms, he doesn't really even know me that well. And that's just how North Dakota people are and Devil's Lake in general. So I was so excited to have this as our first shoot in Devil's Lake.
I got to tell this story. Way back in the day, the Perch Patrol was doing their thing. Steve Zippy Dahl, just a charismatic, fun, engaging guy, gets you on fish. He coaches hockey, or used to, so we always had that connection. But he tells this story about Mitchell back in the day. Joined the Perch Patrol. They were coming to St. Paul for the ice fishing show. It was going to be Jason's first time. He shows up. They get ready to hop in the trucks and drive to Minnesota, and he's carrying a grain bag. And Zippy's like, "What's that?" He's like, "It's my suitcase." Right? He was such a regular guy, and Zippy fell in love with him. And of course, he's one of the best anglers, in the United States. But I always loved that story about him because it was so representative of those guys, just grounded, regular people who just love being outside.
I get a phone call randomly once or twice a year, and it's Zippy Dahl, and I always answer it.
What's going on?
When he calls me, and he just talks to me, and we have conversations about, being ice guides and business owners. He called me last year, just talking about the season and how he's nervous because, those guys go well into March, into April even guiding, and he was so concerned because he had so many people on the books, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said,
sweating, not sleeping.
Yeah, this point forward, I think I'm going to have to start canceling people. And that, that's the last thing you want to do is start canceling customers because, they've been on the books for a while, sometimes for a year. And it's just great to be able to talk to Zippy, and get other guide owners' perspectives. And so, I have so much respect for those guys. And to be out there on our first shoot in Devil's Lake, I was just so excited. And then I have to say, when I got out of the truck, because I had been pheasant hunting for 2 days, right? So I was, every slough or every little depression or anything I drove by, a little cattail swamp, I was looking to see if there was birds standing around it. And the closer I got to Devil's Lake, I'm looking at potholes and I'm starting to get in that ice fishing mode. My wife says I have a switch, it goes from hunting to fishing and then back and forth, and as soon as I put the boat away in the fall, boom, the hunting switch goes on. As soon as the ice comes, boom, the ice fishing switch goes right back on. And then come March, man, I'm ready to get back in the boat. So I get to Devil's Lake, I'm putting my gear on, and I can't say that my heart was 1,000% in it. I mean, you open the truck door and it's right now, I think it was 6 degrees. The snow was blowing. The Vikings game was on. It had just started. But I got to go scout and find some fish, right? I mean, we got to film an episode tomorrow. So we get out, we spud bar our way out. I wasn't there. I didn't have a line in the water for 30 seconds. Well, I'm exaggerating. Maybe a minute and a half. And boom, fish came in and just smoked it. I barely marked it. Yeah. And right then and there, that switch that I talked about flipped from hunting to ice fishing.
Hey, spoiler alert, the Vikings won.
I know it, and in dramatic fashion. And we didn't know that. I just saw on my phone, I was like, oh, the Vikings won, 23-22. And it wasn't until we watched the highlights at Woodland and having dinner to see how dramatic of a game it was. But at that point, I was catching fish. We actually were having a fish fry at Woodland because we kept a few walleyes scouting. Devil's Lake in general, this early ice fishing experience, I'm always going back because I love catching fish shallow, regardless of the species. And especially ice fishing, when you're catching them shallow like that, every single fish comes in hot and they're smoking. I had to dig the spoons out of their gullet. And I think when you watch, I don't want to spoil the episode for anybody because this Devil's Lake episode is our first one of the season. But I think what the viewers will gravitate towards the most is how fast these fish come in and hit, and then how many doubles we get. Or triples, because that shows the wave of walleyes that were coming through. I can only imagine the amount of walleyes that were coming through that particular spot at that time. They would feed and move on. So I'm guessing the schools had to be very large for us to get doubles and triples every time they came through.
So much fun. I got to tell you, my favorite Devil's Lake memory, bar none, and you're a Vikes fan, so you can relate to this. Had the Shirk boys and all their friends up. We were actually catching walleyes on that trip, more walleyes than perch. The boys wanted to see the Vikings game. So we went into the restaurant bar at Woodland to watch the game. And the Vikings were losing the game. And all of a sudden, there was a pass at the end of the game. It was the catch.
The miracle.
It was the miracle. And
no way.
We were in there, and a bunch of, 8, 9, 10-year-old boys got to experience that moment in a bar in North Dakota at Devil's Lake, and they still talk about it. Something they will never, ever, ever forget.
That's fantastic. That reminds me, and I'm going to date myself, but the 98 Vikings, the kick heard round the world. I was standing, we were ice fishing all weekend at Mille Lacs. We were perch fishing and said, we got to go in and watch the game. So we went into I forget what place it was, but it was just a small little Mille Lacs bar, and it had, little TVs in there at the time. It wasn't like the big flat screen TVs you have now. And there had to be 200 ice anglers packed into this little teeny bar to watch the 98 Vikings play, the Falcons. And, I remember talking to my buddies saying, we're going to womp the Falcons. I mean, there's no way we're not going to the Super Bowl, right? And I just distinctly remember the guy behind me saying, watch it. Gary Anderson hadn't missed a kick all season. We all know that as a Vikings fan. He said, Gary Allen's going to miss this. And I looked at him, and I think the whole
That's
bar.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You could have heard a record. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in there, and he missed it. And that guy slinked out behind the crowd. You could just see it. And, we ended up losing that game. But that was a Vikings ice fishing memory. Now you fast forward to today, you don't necessarily have to leave the ice to watch the Vikings, right? I mean, I have fish houses with big screen TVs. You pop the game on. It's
preferred venue is what we call that in the business.
100%. It's amazing how much ice fishing has changed even over the last 5 years, let alone the last 10 or 15. You're talking about some of the early ice shows going there, and with Jason Mitchell and Zippy and Randy Havel, some of the people that I, came up just adoring, going. I remember going to my first St. Paul Ice Show, and it was really cottage, a type of people selling stuff and bins of stuff. And I remember seeing, Zippy Doll and Jason Mitchell and Randy Havel kind of walked me around the show. And I was, I think at the time, maybe 21-year-old guy. And I was just thinking, wow, it's just like
larger than life.
This is everybody who's ice fishing. You fast forward to today and what that ice show has become. It's pretty cool. And, we're basically 2 days away from that St. Paul Ice Show. Bill, you do a ton of sports shows. I've been to a lot of sports shows over my career, and St. Paul Ice Show is one that I look forward to every single year, not just for, seeing the products, but seeing the people that work at the different companies and then the customer base and how loyal a lot of these ice anglers are. And I tell you what, if you go to the St. Paul Ice Show, you see the same people over and over and over again. They are very loyal to that show. It's always kind of the kickoff of the ice season for everybody. And going back to your story about Randy Havel saying if we have ice before the ice show, it's going to be a good year. That's where we're at right now. I think it's going to be a fantastic St. Paul Ice Show. I'm really looking forward to getting down there.
I love that show too, until I get in there. And it is such chaos. It is the only sports show where people are shoulder to shoulder. It is one massive crowd. 2/3 of them are moving clockwise around the facility. A third of them are moving counterclockwise, and it is chaos. But that to me shows you the passion that people have for the game. It's amazing. 100%. Literal shoulder to shoulder of people.
Okay, I want to take a break and thank a few more of our sponsors. Sportsman's Guide, Otter, Walton's, and of course, Devil's Lake Tourism. 100%. They're passionate. They're excited. There's deals going on. It's still sort of that cottage feel. And I'm glad that ice show, they've kind of kept it the way it's been, because it creates that, sort of mob mentality. But it's sort of old home week. I see a ton of my customers there. Like I said, I see people across the fishing industry, whether it's ice anglers or open water or whatever. And it's great to just kind of reconnect with a lot of people from all over Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Iowa, and everybody's geeked up and they're excited. There's a lot of new cool products most of the time. The innovations, I think ice fishermen, more than any other maybe outdoor enthusiast, if you will, they're creative and they're builders, right? You can go down to the St. Paul Ice Show and you can find products that people have kind of tinkered together, cobbled together with plywood, and then all of a sudden this vision of a product becomes a dream. And then next thing you know, somebody's making it out of rotomolded plastic and it becomes like a real thing. I remember Randy Havel showing me a bait puck. And if you think before a bait puck, everybody has bait pucks now, right? Randy Havel showed me a bait puck and I was thinking, that's genius. He's like, I know, I'm going to sell 1 million of them. And he was right. Before that, people used to use like tobacco cans or snooze cans,
Copenhagen.
all the time to put their minnows in. And now here's a product that's insulated. You can put, minnows, wigglers, wax worms. I use it as a portable minnow bucket in my pocket. I mean, the bait puck has just become part of your ice fishing gear, right? But yeah, I remember seeing the bait puck for the first time.
Do you lose them?
I lose them, but more so I lose them because, customers grab them. Or I leave minnows in them. My wife has...
thank goodness they seal tight.
Oh, they become just an absolute nightmare. If you leave minnows in there, that's the first thing that I tell everybody at the end of the day when I have customers on the ice, or even if we're filming like dialed in angling. Okay, empty your bait puck. Because if there's minnows in there, even sitting overnight, they can get a little rank. But we have a porch at my house, right? It's like a 4-season porch. That's where I stage all my gear. I hang all our Strike Master suits, right? My wife, just knows if she walks in, she has the nose. She's like, there's a bait puck in there that's gone awry.
Yep.
And that smell is so distinctive. And so, I've having coming off of my first ice shoot, that's the first thing I did was empty that bait puck. And I remember thinking in my head, okay, good job. You emptied your bait puck. Cause that's one of the things you forget, when I got on the ice for the first time this year, I usually kind of go through my gear and make sure the battery's charged. But there's always something you forget. You don't want to forget the bait puck full of minnows when you get back to your house, because that is an awful, awful smell. Because by the time you go next week or whenever you're going again, not only is that bait puck ruined, the pocket of that suit is awful as well.
Yeah. You're a little bit like a homicide detective. You just know that smell. It is very distinct, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
I asked about losing bait pucks because in the Shirk Outpost, just everywhere I look, oh, I left one there. There's a bait puck. Oh, in that bag. Oh, I haven't opened that bag for 2. Oh, that's where that one went. Like, they're just all over the place.
You open them up and there's flies in there from the larva that had hatched.
Yes. No, but I always get lazy. I use them as a little tackle box now and then. Just like, hey, I just need to throw a few spoons in this one or a couple of jig heads on this one, throw it in my pocket. It's good. And then 2 years later, I find it in a random coat. And
I do all the time. That the bait puck is kind of my junk drawer, if you will, of tackle.
Yes.
Like if I need to take a spoon off quick, but I don't want to put it back in my box, I put it in a bait puck. And pretty soon you get so many of those little bait pucks that are full of tackle, you don't have one to put bait in, so you're combining them. And
summer tip: the tall ones, the old tall ones. I still use those during the summer. Like when we're out in the bush, I'll just throw a little bit of bait in those, seal it off. They're insulated well enough so minnows and leeches will stay during the summer. And
that is a good tip. I can't say that I use a lot of bait pucks in the summer.
The tall ones. They're, I don't know, like whatever they are, 8 inches tall. Throw it in the bottom of the little 14-foot boat when we're back in the woods, and they just work great.
I have converted a lot of ice fishing things to open water or vice versa, tools and different things that I've adapted, but bait pucks tend to just stay ice fishing and into my ice fishing gear. So I'll have to try that. I have a son now that is kind of experimenting with his own gear, and I've been helping him sort of organize his gear, and just organizing ice fishing gear is a job in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I spent most of the fall kind of reorganizing my shed. And now with having Dialed In Angling as a TV show separate from Roach's Guide Service, I didn't want to kind of cross over things. Last year, some things got, tackle boxes got ripped out of Dialed In Angling boxes and got put away into the Roach's Guide Service stuff. And Roach's Guide Service stuff tends to just be flung around, right? And I want to keep it organized.
Gets used.
Yeah, it gets used, And so I want to keep it organized. So I purchased bins this year and hung up augers. I got rod racks and just kind of looking at
your machine. How that goes.
Yeah, just looking at your machines and saying, how can I reorganize this? When I fish with other anglers and I see how they have little rod lockers and different things that they add to enhance their fishing experience or making it more organized, then I tend to look back and say, oh, I want to do that, And I went through everything. I've got, if you look at my 4-wheelers, I've got the monster boxes. The monster boxes are like the coolest things that you can put on a machine because they're really a trunk in a sense where things aren't going to get snowy. Like this trip out to Devil's Lake, I had so much gear. You bring so much stuff and you don't want to forget anything. And to have it all kind of organized in that monster box is huge. And you see people tweaking those things all the time. I learn a lot from like hanging out with other, ice fishing dorks where like, dude, that guy's got some sweet rod holders on there, And it seems like every year when I go down to the St. Paul Ice Show, I find more of that stuff that I can geek out over.
I've made a career of being jealous.
Yeah,
right? Like,
totally.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Well, so I want you to take a picture of your organizational system now. And then like February 15th, you're going to take another picture of the very same area. We should actually post it online and see how it looks. Because my organization is my biggest otter sled, and I just throw everything in there, and then you know what I do? I put a cover on it, and it looks amazing.
See, if everybody saw my shed now, they'd be like, oh, man, he's really organized. But if they saw it in February, they'd be like, okay, is this Hoarders, an episode of Hoarders, or is this Dialed In Angling? I mean,
right.
that's how I roll. when I get done at the end of the day, like everything's frozen. We try to put it in my shop and thaw everything out, and it looks like a yard sale.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what shops are for.
I think every ice angler can relate. I know my wife becomes wit's end of all the gear that we throw on the porch. The amount of Markhams that we charge, the amount of cameras, and now with batteries, lithium batteries for all your augers. There's like batteries everywhere, and there's those little plug-in like 6 plug-in strips everywhere. I'm sure it's not approved by any fire department on the planet. But that's sort of ice fishing in a nutshell.
We're going to have to get Fire Marshal Brian Beef Sather on you. Come down and check. Hey, another tip or little trick. The cheap box fans, just those little square fans that you buy at Menards for $20. When you put your gear in at the end of the day and it's all slushed and covered in ice and everything's, always put 2 of those fans on the gear overnight. The way moving air melts ice and evaporates and cleans stuff up for the next day, it is a go-to. I have darn near as many of those stupid fans sitting around in the outpost as the bait pucks laying around, because you just set them up, plug them in, and forget them.
That's a fantastic guy. I always
have works.
I always have the giant balls of ice on the bottom of my bibs.
Yeah,
because I'm always
little, the size of a football.
Everyone that knows me knows like I drill a million holes, and it's not because I like drilling holes. I actually hate drilling holes, but
you love it.
You've
made a career of it. Everyone knows you as the guy.
Well, here's the deal, though. The reason I drill as many holes as I do is because I look at it like summer fishing. I'm always moving in my boat, right? And now with forward-facing sonars and everything, you're constantly moving. You're always hunting down fish. I was always hunting down fish even prior to any forward-facing sonar, because as soon as they quit biting, I just have adult ADD. That's just how I am. And so I can't sit there. Like, I have a really hard time sitting there. And so those drilling of holes just became natural. And like, that's how I fished. And I just wanted what's over there. I need to know. Right. And so my bibs are always just completely covered in ice. The legs, I can barely walk at the end of the day, but I also get a workout because it's like having weights on each ankle, so when I come home, my porch is just a puddle. So there's always blankets and different things. I'll have to implement the fan, the Bill Shirk fans. Now my wife's really going to love it, because not only is there gear laying everywhere, now I'm going to have 10 box fans going.
But they work. They
Good
work.
Pun. I always put them over the register. I can't imagine how much water is going down in my furnace at the end of the day after drilling all those holes.
No wonder she loves you so much.
She, and it's funny because my wife is a saint. She puts up with hunting and fishing, and she doesn't really even hunt or fish that much. But my kids love it now, so she'll go do it. She loves going out in the hard houses. I think hard houses have changed just the way my family ice fishes, because my daughter likes to ice fish, but she doesn't like standing out hole hopping. She's not going to be out there hole hopping. My wife definitely is. When we dated, I remember having the flip over shacks, and I'd be like, hey, let's go out fishing. And her feet were cold, and I probably kept her out there too long, so she just was like, I don't want to ice fish. You bring a hard house into the mix, everybody's digging it. I remember we watched the Super Bowl a couple years ago. My wife, I had to work that day, but my customers left early because they wanted to watch the Super Bowl. My wife brought out like crock pots of food. We brought the kids out there. They caught fish, and the kids were running around catching fish during the Super Bowl. It was a fantastic time, and I remember thinking, this is awesome. Like, this is how I get my family completely hooked on doing something that I'm 1,000% passionate about.
See, you're like the fishing saint. Can we have a confessional? I'm not a Catholic, but we're going to do a confessional just for a moment. Will you be my means of forgiveness? I have a story to share with you. And it has to do with Strike Master augers.
Okay.
Solo augers. I fell in love with solo power.
Me too.
Okay. They were awesome.
Can I cut you off for 1 second?
Always.
Randy Hamel came to me and said, hey, Tecumseh motors are going away. We got to test a bunch of augers. Nobody drills more holes than you. Can you please test these augers? And he gave me a bunch of these heads, and they were weird. I truthfully, I wasn't testing them as like I probably should have at first, because I was like, a couple of them didn't start.
No,
and they were just weird off brands.
They were cheap knockoffs, and some of them just like fell apart in your hands.
I grabbed that solo auger and I drilled a hole. I literally dropped that auger and got on my cell phone and called Randy. And I said, we got our auger. We got our gas auger. That thing was such a beast. And I was so happy. And I remember because there was like a voting. They were going to vote like what auger to go with. And I remember calling Randy every day, like, if you don't go with that solo auger, you're making a big mistake for your company. And like, I was just such a fan of that when it came out. It was a way better motor even than the old Tecumsehs. I loved that solo motor. It was so fast. I had never drilled a hole that fast in my life. And coming from a guy who makes his living drilling holes in the winter, I was like, this has to be our motor. This has to be our motor for sure. And I was so like, eat, sleep, and breathe that motor. So back to your confessional.
So I loved the solo. I'm still a solo guy. Everyone thinks I'm just
gas motor.
Oh, it's a solo, man. It's incredible.
Are you serious? You're confessing that you still use gas motors?
Well, that's the simple part of the story. The more complex part is this. So you talk about getting your family involved. So the Shirk boys love doing everything outdoors. Brady Shirk has really gotten into tying flies. And now that he's harvesting pheasants, he wants to tie flies using pheasant tails and all that stuff, which pheasant tail, a great fly for panfish, by the way. Another secret tip of the day. But about a year ago, he digs into my box, and it's a moving box of fly tying gear, because when we moved from our place out to where we are now, I packed a lot of my fly tying stuff away and just sort of forgot about it. So Brady digs into it and gets through and is pulling things out, and here on the bottom he's like, oh, what's this? Well, this is pretty neat. Do you remember the solo calendars? Did you ever get a solo calendar from Mr. Havel?
No, but the girls of the solo calendar were at the ice show the one year, and my wife came down to the ice show, and they were right next to our booth, and she's like, "Oh, you're working, huh?" Yeah. And so I do remember that.
So Brady Shirk pulls out of the bottom of the fly tying moving box the solo girls calendar, where they have these German babes posing with solo leaf blowers and solo engines, and of course they're amazing and topless. And
were they topless? I don't remember that.
Oh, I'll get you a copy of them.
Okay.
I might have been given a few extra of those calendars. Yes, they were absolutely Euro trash calendars. And so Brady found them. He's like, "Oh, Daddy, what's this?" Like,
"Oh, hey, son.
Now I know why you love these ice augers." So that's my confession. And I did not throw away the solo calendar.
You just hid it somewhere else. Buried it somewhere
it's
else.
in the next box to be discovered someday.
For your wife or somebody else to find.
So there you go. Another ice auger story.
Okay, but let me back up. You touched on you still love gas augers. So I have not picked up a gas auger since I converted to lithium.
Right.
I really haven't. I do. Actually, I have picked it up because when I reorganized my shed, I found 2 or 3 gas augers that I put like way up on the top. But I remember thinking, I bet these still run. I emptied the gas. I kept them because I thought, when I go to Canada, I'm going to need a gas auger. That's not the case. I went to Canada with a 40 volt, did just fine, and the rest is history. Now that thing's full of cobwebs. Every once in a while, when I hear a gas auger running, I was like, oh, it's kind of like, you don't hear that anymore. It's almost like,
must be
what
Bill.
Is that? Or like, is that a dirt bike or somebody running a chainsaw?
I know where Shirk's fishing.
Yeah. So when's the last time you drilled a hole with a gas auger?
Well, last winter.
No doubt. Like you just.
So the Rapala boys at one point talked about creating a commercial that they were going to convert Shirk, which would still be an amazing little thing. But yeah, I'm just old school. And you know where it comes from, Tony? When I was growing up, I never got a gas auger, ever. Every hole I drilled was either beating a hole in the ice with a spud or, oh my gosh, we went to the Brainerd Flea Market and there's a hand crank auger. I've never had anything this nice. So for like 30 years of my life, every hole was by hand. So when I finally was able to save up enough money and get a gas auger that did the work for me, oh my gosh, it just like I'm real sentimental about that stuff.
Our auger stories parallel each other because I used to fish out in front of my parents' place, religiously ice fish. My parents used to. My dad he's still like super concerned about the ice, like he's always worried. Like he'll text me, hey, got your float suit on? He's your dad, right? Well, when I was a kid, it had to be above zero before my parents would let me go out ice fishing. So I literally, because I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, I would literally grab the temperature gauge that's outside our parents' house hanging on the deck, because we had a huge deck with windows, and I would bring it in long enough so it would be above zero. But I didn't want it to be too high because I knew my dad didn't believe me.
And then I would up to the light to heat it up.
And I would hang it back up, and I would tell my dad, because I'd have all my ice fishing stuff ready. I'd be like, hey, it's 2 degrees. And he had to know it was 20 below.
The thermometer read 75.
He had to know it was 20 below. And so he'd be like, oh, okay. He's half asleep still. And I'd be like, can I fish? He's like, yeah, it's above zero. He hadn't had coffee. The key is I'd have to hit him before he got his coffee in him, And so I would go down and ice fish. Well, we had the most absolutely horrific dull Mora or Mora auger, I guess it would be, the blue one. And it was kind of rusty on the edges where the paint had come on. Well, I would get out there and drill and drill and drill and drill and drill. It would take me forever. And it would get to the point where if I had a buddy who could lean on the top, and then I would drill, and then we'd take turns drilling and sweating and drilling and sweating. This went on for 2 or 3 years, right? And then I finally went ice fishing with my dad. It was like a group trip, and he brought the auger. Even other people had gas augers, but he wanted to bring our stuff, right? And he started drilling. He's like, oh, this thing's dull. And I had been explaining to him for like 3 years, this thing's dull. So he actually went and bought me blades. And when he bought blades, that was like an epiphany. It was like I could hear the angels singing. It was like, boom. And I was through the ice, even through like 2 feet of ice. Yeah. And my dad's like, I just remember him distinctly saying, why didn't you tell me earlier that blades are only like $10? And I had been telling him for like 10 years or like 3 years that these blades were so dull. And so we got new blades. That was great. Well, it only took, I would say probably that next winter, we got our first gas auger. Because my dad, if everybody knows my last name's Roach, so my Uncle Gary, my dad was fished on Mr. Walleye Specialties team. Well, it was a promotional fishing team. Gary was fishing all over the country. My dad was fishing tournaments. Strike Master augers came on board. They had Gary doing some promotions, the Mr. Walleye team bringing promotions. My dad came home with a Strike Master auger. And I remember thinking, like, this is the coolest thing that I have ever. And it wasn't even my like Christmas present or anything. It was my dad's auger, but he was going to let me use this gas auger. And I just remember thinking, like, how like you're a big bird hunter. You know how like when you pull your guns out, your dog like wants to sleep by the guns. I literally wanted to sleep by that Strike Master.
Auger.
I was like so cool. It was so cool to have a gas auger. Yeah. And I'm like you. I never look back. We use that gas auger, and it. That's how it sort of formed that, I would say, the ice trolling or hole hopping that I did in my career, because once I got a gas auger, man, it was like giving me a tool. And I literally explored everything around my parents' lake. We went to Winnebagosh. We drilled holes like crazy. In future episodes, I'm going to talk about the evolution of ice trolling for me and where it started. And even back in the 90s, going with my dad's buddies and the amount of holes they would drill to find perch on Winnebagosh, that's where I adopted the drill holes and find fish and keep drilling and catching fish and don't stand still.
Isn't that funny? Because even as a kid in the open boat, all we did is troll for walleyes, right? But ice fishing, never. What I did is if I was lucky enough to get 3 holes in my spot, like that's where we're fishing and this is our ice fishing spot. And that's it. I never moved around. But you changed that game. I mean, you're known for it. You cover lakes now.
Yeah, and a lot of other people do. But it was that evolution of a gas auger and then all of a sudden a battery-powered auger. Now the battery-powered auger, I feel like I'm more empowered with that than I ever was with the gas auger because it's so quick. You don't have to start that auger. You instantly have battery power. I keep battery backups. You can charge them in your trucks now as you're out there. You can charge them in your ATVs or UTVs. So you always have that at the tip of your fingers. You don't have to start the motor. You don't have to use gas. You don't have to use oil. I know a couple years ago,
Sacrilege. Don't talk that way.
it had to be 5 years ago, you would hear gas augers everywhere. And now, I mean, people my son doesn't even know what a gas auger looks like, so it would be, I don't even think he'd know how to start it.
Well, the next time you hear that off in the distance, you make sure you giggle and be like, oh, must be Bill.
I will. I'll be like, oh, there's Bill Shirk again. I don't know that I heard a gas auger last year. I mean, that's how they've just become gone by the wayside, right? And I know there's probably a few out there, and I know that, there's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing, or if it ain't broke, don't.
Oh, they fixed it.
No, but
lithium's amazing.
1,000%. But I'm just saying, there's like anglers out there that they're not going to get a lithium auger until that gas auger dies. And so I'm sure there's people out there that still use gas augers, but I haven't picked one up other than putting it in the back of the shelf. I want to keep it actually.
$20.
Well, I have envisions of cabin. Like I have some old outboards, so I have envisions of like retiring and have this cabin and hanging this gas auger in the rafters saying, I drilled a ton of holes with that thing. So that's the only reason I'm keeping it. I'm not keeping it to ever use it again on the ice.
Make sure you hang that stuff in your own facility. So we just took all of our old Canadian motors and all of our stuff up to the Nisswa Hardware and did a handshake deal. Like you can use the log splitter whenever you want. And we're putting all this stuff up. And then they sold the hardware like a month later.
and there goes your stuff.
Our family history is gone. Like all of it is gone. Our old Evinrude motors, there's one behind you, all gone. So just hang your memories in your own facility, please.
It would be in my own house, deer camp maybe, or the lake place at some point in my life when I go to retire. I'm going to be living on the lake.
And you're going to show up and there's going to be a broken window and the solo augers are going to be gone and you're going to make one call to the cops and they're going to arrest me.
Bill Shirk. It was definitely Bill. To get my wife to hang an auger from the rafters, though, that's going to be the biggest hurdle, right?
Yeah, it's not going to happen in our house.
It's not going to fit into the decor.
Do you have deer hanging in your house?
I do not.
Because of you or your wife?
No, they're my wife. I'll tell you a story about that.
Katie Shirk's the same way.
Okay, we're going to pause for a break. We're just going to thank a few of our sponsors. Rapala has been on board since the beginning. Couldn't thank Rapala. This TV show, Dialed in Angling, would not be here without the visions of the folks over at Rapala. You and I are good buddies with every single person that worked there. So I want to thank Rapala. Ski-Doo is on board this year. I'm actually picking up the sleds today. I can't wait. There looks like a little bit more snow in the forecast. Ski-Doo makes great products. Coors Light, and then, of course, DeWalt. Let's get back to the deer head conversation and the fish conversation. I always joke with people. They're like, oh, you must have mounts all over your house of fish. I always tell people I get to look at them every single day, so I don't have any fish mounted. I don't have any fish mounted. There's a couple old fish mounts that are in my shop that, like my dad and my grandpa fished a tournament. They were, won the tournament, so they mounted. It was like a 9.5 and a 9-pound walleye that they got in the tournament. It's a cool mount that I have in my shop. I'll always keep that. I'll probably always have it updated. There's an old crappie from Rainy Lake that my dad mounted that he caught walleye fishing. That's just a beast. It was just like one of the Red Gut Bay giants from back in the day.
Shh, don't say Red Gut.
Oh,
don't give away secrets.
So, I do have a few mounts, but I get to look at fish every day, so I don't need to mount them. I've caught some absolute giant fish that I could absolutely have on the wall, but I don't. The deer head thing, though, if I shoot a big buck, I'm mounting it. I'm not doing a European mount. I'm doing a shoulder mount. They're all currently staged in my garage. They're on the walls. But
those
they're
are
not
dead
in the house.
minnows you're smelling.
My son did shoot a big buck in Iowa, so my wife allowed him to put it in his own room, so he has his mount.
Good for him.
But so my wife has always been adamant about no deer heads in the house, right? No deer mount. She was like, no. Well, a few years ago, it became super popular in like Pottery Barn or something that they would paint these antlers and hang them on the wall, or hang antlers became popular. So I have all our deer heads, or, I do have some bucks that we did a European mount, or if you shoot the kids shot a deer that wasn't a huge buck. I always keep the antlers, but I have them hanging in the garage, right? She wanted all these antlers. She's going to hang them as decor. And I said, no, Absolutely not. It was uncool and unpopular before Pottery Barn. You're not painting these things and hanging them on the wall there. I was like, so I put my foot down. So like, yeah, like these are mine. They're staying in the garage full of cobwebs. And, so I kind of, played the man card on that one, but she is coming around, even with my son having it in his room now, she's kind of softened a little bit on that, but for years it was like, no fish, no deer, nothing dead on the wall. She's like, you guys kill it and catch enough stuff. You don't need to have it on our walls.
I don't think anyone else will admit it, but I bet that is a conversation that happens a lot more frequently than we think in households, because we are exactly the same way. I have one single mount, and it's in my office here at work. And you know where it came from? Randy Havel.
Okay.
Our old strike master buddy. I caught a 34.5-inch walleye, and it was caught and released. And Randy's like, that's going on the wall. And I said, no, you don't understand. You don't know my girlfriend, time girlfriend, Katie Shirk. He's like, it doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, one day it showed up. Like, he demanded that I have something hanging on the wall. It's a fiberglass, but it's,
You're not a man unless you've got something hanging on your wall. Right?
Well, it's hanging on the wall.
I think you're right, because like everybody that I can think of, or not everybody, but most people that I can think of that have a spouse or significant other, there's not deer heads hanging everywhere. They have a man cave that they have it in.
That's
right?
where
It's in their man cave, or it's in their garage. They're not just hanging all over the house, unless I guess I just hang out with dudes that aren't man enough to say that they're going to be hanging all over the house.
Shirk boys, they get to put their turkey fans in their bedrooms, but if I want to put something like that in the house, Kay's like, yeah, no.
You know what I've always wanted, what I always thought it was like super cool, is like the pheasant on like the dry rotted fence post with like the barbed wire, and like a big rooster with a huge tail. I always thought that would be like super cool over the fireplace. Or the other one that I've really that I would die to have mounted on a fireplace mantle, like someday to have like a huge, stone fireplace and have like a big log, like white pine, sort of fireplace mantle, but to have a bobcat like swinging at a ruffed grouse. Would that be great? Just over the fireplace mantle, like you could gravitate towards that, and like
that's not going to happen in your house.
You could tell so many fishing stories on that fireplace. Just like, look at that bobcat, just like swatting at that ruffed grouse. That's the type of house I want to live in when I get older, Bill. And then you have the solo strike master on the wall. It just matches the decor, man.
And then on the old refrigerator in the kitchen, you're going to have your nice solo calendar hanging, January 1999.
That will never happen in my house. I can promise you that. I will be living in the garage with the mounts. That would not happen.
If this plays out the way you're describing it based on what your wife has told you, you're going to be living in the garage anyhow.
Could be. I could be there now, like, truthfully. My wife's a saint. She's put up with a lot, so I'm surprised that I'm not living out there now.
All right, let's get back to this season. What's coming up this year?
We've got a cool lineup, like always, chasing cool bites. I think a lot of our content, as it becomes episodes and segments, are going to break down not only locations that are popular with ice anglers, especially in the beginning of the season, like we just shot at Devil's Lake. I think our next episode, I don't want to tease it out quite yet, is a destination that's going to be on everyone's mind when you come down to the St. Paul Ice Show. But not only are we going to go out there and fish, we're going to kind of show you exactly how we go about doing it. I'm always like an open book when it comes to teaching people exactly what I'm doing. If people know me and my guide service, it dates back to doing fishing reports. I used to do these fishing reports where I tell everybody exactly what lures I was using, where I was catching fish, what depths, all season long, ice, open water. Our show is a lot like that. That's what I love about the elements of our show, is that segment's going to break down. Sometimes it might be a destination piece where we go somewhere that's super popular among ice anglers. Some might be a destination where we're going somewhere that I think is really cool as an ice angler, what I find intriguing, or we find intriguing, you, me, and Travis. And I like those pieces. And then some of them are just going to be, breaking down techniques, how to catch fish. Last year, if you look back into Dialed In Angling last year, where I broke down basin crappies. I think that was one of my favorite episodes to shoot because it was so realistic where I'm kind of navigating a bunch of different basins in a lake to find crappies within those basins and then catch them. Another one that comes to mind too is where Travis and I and Pat were out chasing down panfish in a basin that were moving the entire time. So it was a moving target. I think if you look at dialing angling last year, that was the first time anybody had ever showcased doing fish drives.
Right. Moving fish.
It had to be. I've never seen anybody.
They're over here. You're set up over here. I'm going to walk around and they're going to glide right over to your bait.
Right. And that concept came not because we had it all conjured up on a script. That happened because it's a real life scenario of ice fishing and what happens. And this is how you go about catching them. So we're going to have a lot of that coming up in season 2. We're going to be able to expand upon that. Last year, we were so hogtied because we didn't have ice that we kind of had to just navigate around Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Canada. That's not going to be the case this year. We're going to be able to explore places all over the ice belt. There's areas that of whether it's lakes or bodies of water or species that I want to target around the ice belt that we just weren't able to last year. So people that watch our show, I know a lot of people last year that watched our show were like, wow, it was so cool. I can't believe you guys were able to get on the ice in all these different locations. Well, now we're going to expand upon that.
The other thing is it's real-time information. And this has been a different project for me because I didn't always care about like, it has to be this week. We go shoot, we turn the show right around. A couple days later, it's on the air. So it's real-time information, but it is pretty fun to be able to say, hey, we're here right now and these fish are biting.
Yeah. Devil's Lake.
People want to see that.
Absolutely. That format of filming that week and then airing that weekend, I like it. It's a challenge as an angler and as an ice angler.
It's a challenge as a television producer.
I know Aaron sweats it. Everybody in the office is sweating because we're trying to get this out. You're up against weather. You're up against snowstorms, trying to get the media back. I saw the device that Aaron carries as far as like uploading this media. It looks like something out of the Jetsons, right? And so it's cool though. It's what anglers want to see. It's what I want to see as an angler. Up-to-date fishing information that's real time. And so being out in Devil's Lake this week and experiencing that first ice, I think our viewers are going to have that same experience because it's fresh. It's there. It's what we're doing right now, and we're airing it right now.
I want to give a shout out to Pilot Bill from Marvin. Last year,
yes,
we had to get video back, right? Little computer chips, and we're like, oh my gosh, so far away. We've got weather. What do we do? And buddy's like, well, I know Pilot Bill. He can fly from Baudette down to the city. He's like, we can have it to you in 90 minutes. I'm like, really? So you guys run over to the airport, drop a couple of computer chips off. They go into the back of the Marvin double prop plane. Bill happens to be a big fan of our television show. He's like, sweet, I'll fly these down for you. Flies them down here to the cities. Somebody from the office drives over to the airport. Bill hands it and boom, it's in house. Like, that's a fun challenge on the TV side of trying to get the stuff back. And full disclosure, Bill got an awesome bag of swag from us for that. So
I bet. I remember
awesome
driving over to the to drop that off with Nick Anthony to drop off the media, and it was like a snowstorm, and we had to cut out fishing early to get this media there to get it on the plane so they could get it back to the Twin Cities in time. And I just remember driving at night. I was like, whatever happens here, don't go in the ditch. We're trying to get this media because the plane was taking off, at a certain amount of time. So we had to get that media there in time. And that level of stress, like I just need to worry about the fishing portion of it, not the media portion. But
welcome to television.
Yeah, I'm fully entrenched in it now. So that format's cool. I think it's the relevant information that people are consuming on social media. We're kind of just rolling that into a TV show, and
now the podcast.
And we can kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and talk about the segments. We're going to have a bunch of really good guests on throughout the year that are just as passionate as we are when it comes to ice fishing. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this podcast because there were so many things that happened last year that people would have no idea. I know we talked about it on Travis's podcast, but everything from racing media to get on a plane at Marvin Windows to get back down to the Twin Cities, to Travis getting a jig hook in the eye, to walking out 2-3 miles, to driving 17 hours to Wekusko Falls because it was the only place on planet Earth that had ice to film a show.
Awesome episodes, by the way.
Yeah, so to be able to talk about that on a podcast is pretty cool. So Bill, we should get back to the episode we just filmed out in Devil's Lake, our first episode, season 2 of Dialed In Angling. There's no other place that we wanted to be last year for the first segment than Devil's Lake. That was like on our hit list of places to go. So fast forward, I'm pheasant hunting. I race out. We find fish. We meet up with Alex, and I'm all in. I mean, these fish are attacking the baits. I mean, they're not biting. They're attacking the baits. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I love fishing shallow. If anglers out there are passionate about early ice walleyes, Devil's Lake should certainly be on your locations of going to, because it's such a fun area, not just because the fish are aggressive, but it's endless water. It is absolutely endless water and endless opportunities. There's great guides out there like the Perch Patrol, people at Woodland. There's countless other guides out there that are just as passionate about fishing as we are. When we get out there, you're whaling on fish. And I will say, when you're fishing shallow like that, there's a couple things that we talked about in Dialed In Angling that anglers can do to put more fish on the ice early. And one is fishing aggressively. When you're in shallow water like that, use a jigging spoon, use a jigging wrap, a bait that's more aggressive, like a flutter type of spoon, a jigging wrap, a jigging shad wrap, something that you can fish really fast. I tend to fish a little bit heavier spoon in that shallower water just because I can really rip that bait. Okay. Some people, when they get into shallow water, they like to using really, really light spoons. And I should back that up with saying I don't necessarily always use heavier spoons, but I use bigger profile spoons, right? So ripping wraps, jigging wraps, bigger profile flutter spoons. Like you might upsize the roach spoon, for example. We've got a new bladed bowl spoon that's out. I basically fished that the entire time I was out in Devil's Lake. And so when you're in shallow water, fish those things aggressive, and the fish are going to come piling in. And they were inhaling it. They were absolutely inhaling it. If that doesn't get you fired up for this year's ice season, I don't know what will.
So I did see a clip last night. We got the video back in-house here at the office. We ingested it into the computer system, and I saw an underwater clip of a bait being fished aggressively. And all of a sudden, there's a walleye there. It just swims right up to it and just pounds it. It's not the classic walleye shows up, it's hanging out, it's checking out. It just comes in and just destroys the bait. That's a bite we dream of.
That's a bite that will get you fired up for ice fishing. It got me fired up for ice fishing. It got me fired up for this entire season. I mean, to kick things off out there and to catch fish like that, I couldn't be more pleased. I want to thank Alex Reslock for just taking us out with open arms. He had no qualms about it. He was just like, yeah, let's go fishing. You know, he just wanted to fish as well. And he's a fish head like we are, you know, so it was fun to be out there with him. Woodland Resort for having us out there. They were just rolled out the red carpet that we were there. So that was great. And I want to thank the Devil's Lake Walleyes for really cooperating with us for our first segment of Dialed In Angling for season 2. Because if it wasn't for the walleyes, we couldn't have shot this show. No, in all seriousness, that whole scenario about filming the walleyes in Devil's Lake, I didn't even bring an underwater camera because most of the time it's so dirty and so dark, especially early ice. I wasn't planning on shooting any underwaters. Luckily, Aaron had some GoPros on some big long sticks, and he was putting them all the way down. I mean, that's how shallow we were fishing. He's shoving GoPros down there to capture live strikes. It was pretty neat. I apologize to Aaron because he was getting his hands wet, shoving GoPros down the hole, but we did get some strikes. We got live strikes, and it, you know, when you can watch, I'm a huge fan of camera fishing. So when you can watch those strikes live like that, I think the viewers are really going to, you know, enjoy some of those. Just seeing that stuff gets you fired up for ice fishing. It gets the viewers fired up. It gets me fired up. Aaron was showing us those clips on his GoPro. It was awesome.
And people get to watch it on television in just a couple of days.
That's right. Dialed In Angling coming your way. I can't wait. Season 2. Thank you for listening to the podcast, Dialed In Angling. We hope you tune in each and every week. Tell your buddies about it. Tell everybody about it. Ice season's here. There's no qualms about it, man. We went from summer to ice fishing. I want to thank Mother Nature for that. And I want to thank all the fish that are going to cooperate on Dialed In Angling the entire rest of the season. Thanks for tuning in.